Oh. Oh.
ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं कर्वावहै
Recording in progress.
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तुर्विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः ॐ सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा कार्पण्यदोषोपहतः स्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वां धर्मसम्मूढचेताः यश्रेयस्यानिश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधिमां त्वां प्रपन्नम् ॐ वाङ्मे मनसि प्रतिष्ठिता मनो मे वाचि प्रतिष्ठितम् आविर्आविर्मयेति वेदस्य म आणिस्तः श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासिः अनेन अधीतेन अहोरात्रान् सन्ददामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारम् अवतु अवतु मामवतु वक्तारम् अवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ भद्रं भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येम अक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गे स्तुष्टुवाग्वं स्वस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति न पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्ताक्ष्य अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ अहं वृक्षस्य रेरिव कीर्तिपृष्ठं गिरेरिव ऊर्ध्वपवित्रो वाजिनीव स्वममृतम् अस्मि द्रविडगुं सवर्चसं सुमेधा अमृतोक्षतः इति त्रिशङ्कोर्वेदानुवचनम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
Narayan, Narayan. Okay, so in the last class we had completed till Shloka 9. Essentially, last two classes we have understood.
You want to call somebody else for summary?
I'm not going to do too much summary. We have to move on. We have to. We have focused on understanding the lakshan and the bandhan prakar of the three gunas, the lakshan, the characteristics, and the bandhan prakar, how they bind, right? So, I'll call out one person at a time. I just want you to tell me what you understand by how the three gunas bind, right? So one by one. Naina, would you like to tell us how you understand that sattva binds?
Sattva binds through happiness and our attachment to maintain that state.
Yeah, does not bind through happiness. There is no problem. attachment.
Attachment to happiness.
Attachment to happiness, attachment to tranquility, attachment to acquisition of knowledge.
Knowledge.
Right? Great. Awesome. So what does such, when a person is bound by sattva, what is the problem with that?
Sattva, problem with sattva is our desire, knowledge becomes only not experiential knowledge, but more intellectual knowledge. The attachment to only intellectual knowledge.
Very nice. Very nice. Very good. Anything else that anyone else wants to add to that? How sattva, like the issues that happen, the problems that happen when somebody is attached to knowledge, attached to happiness and tranquility. One is that what Naina just explained very clearly. What is the second thing? Because a person who is attached to tranquility, attached to purity, attached to that happiness, because he's attached to it, right? He cannot withstand the absence of it, right? So such a person becomes a cynic. If he sees adharma anywhere, if he sees impurity anywhere, he cannot understand it. There is no compassion there. He cannot understand why somebody else cannot behave in the way he does, right? And he becomes extremely agitated, extremely disturbed when there is an absence of purity, when there is an absence of tranquility or peace. He'll see any kind of disturbance that somebody else is creating, then they will start to blame that person or situation immediately. And so they will get removed from Satogun pretty quickly. And they will go down into the Tamogun. That is the problem with being bound by Satogun. Make sense? Okay. Kakoli, can you tell us how Rajogun binds and what are the effects? Like, what is the problem with being bound by Rajogun?
It binds us by propelling us to actions. And that creates a lot of expectations whenever we are doing a good thing, but we have an expectation out of that result also, whatever we are doing. Maybe someone, saying good things about us, appreciating us. So that is Rajogun.
Correct. Absolutely. Very well said. So Rajogun makes us a workaholic. That's the problem with Rajogun, right? It makes a person workaholic, and more action will create more results. More results will create more bandhan. Because all actions that are done when you are bound by and attached to Rajogun, when Rajogun is in ascendancy, at that stage, all the karma are sakam karma, expectations and attachments.
And desires.
And yeah, they are led
Gives
by
rise to
desires.
desires.
They are led by desires. So nice. Okay. Bhagishi, do you want to attempt telling me how Tamogun binds and what is the issue with being bound by Tamogun?
Tamogun, it creates ignorance. We are not able to understand the reality. So yeah, so basically it gives an illusion of what is unreal. We are not able to discern the reality. It's also where it also where our body is in a state of like laziness, ignorance, not feeling of doing anything, like feeling like it's okay, whatever happening is okay, like something like that.
Very well said, Bhagishi. Very well said. So Tamogun creates carelessness. It creates forgetfulness. That's the problem with being bound by Tamogun. It even leads to, there is no discernment, right, of what is right, what is wrong. So we will end up doing wrong actions. In Rajogun, you will end up doing right actions with the wrong attitude sometimes, but in Tamogun, you end up doing wrong actions in the first place, right? And that's how it binds you, because it will bind you to results that will take you down when tamogun is in ascendancy. Okay, amazing, amazing. Yeah. So and after that we did okay, so we've covered the effects of each of the gunas, right? In Satogun, just to recap one sentence each, we know your intellect, when it is being guided by Satogun, you know what is right. Okay, you know what is right and you will do it. In Rajogun, you know what is right and you will do it, but with attachment to the end results. Okay, so in Satogun, the actions are nishkam karma. Okay, unattached actions, and the ones that are roasted seeds. In Rajogun, you will end up doing sakam karma, led by desires. Okay, in Tamogun, your attitude is wrong, but even your action is wrong. At least in Rajogun, at least your actions will be right. Right, attitude is wrong, but your actions are right. In Tamogun, your attitude is wrong and your actions are also wrong. Okay. So now we'll start with Shloka 10. Okay. Smita, will you read for us?
Yeah. The Lord now tells how one guna predominates another.
Rajas tamascha vibhuya
Rajas tamascha vibhuya
sattvam bhavati bharata
sattvam bhavati bharata
Rajas sattvam tamaschaiva
rajasattvam tamaschaiva
tamasattvam rajastatha.
tamasattvam rajastatha. Ascendancy of one guna by subduing the other two. It is pertinent to know that all the three gunas subsist together in the mind. The reason is that the mind, the senses, and the body all are the results of modification of primal nature, which is constituted of the three gunas, and they therefore devolve in all the modifications. But due to the result of motivated actions done in the past lives or in this life, one of them gain ascendancy over the other two. The scriptures speak of the following 10 factors which vitally determine the ascendancy of a particular guna: religious texts, water, offspring, place, time, actions, birth, meditation, mantras, and sanskaras. Some of the above factors, like birth, are inherent in the making of a person, and some are acquired with deliberate efforts. For example, if ascendancy of the sattva guna is desired, suitable religious texts, place, actions, meditation, and mantras have to be chosen carefully and utilized. Similar is the case with the other two gunas.
So I think gunas is a chapter we all can easily experience and relate to. But we can easily experience and relate to it when it's outside of us. So I'll give you an example. When you go to a temple, automatically the thoughts you will have would be predominantly Sataguni thoughts. Sitting in a temple, you probably won't be thinking too many negative thoughts or thoughts around aggressive action or negativity or delusion, right? Similarly, sitting in an office automatically gives rise to your Rajuguni thoughts. Okay, what do I have to do? Let's build out my to-do list. Let's get things done, right? So the environment we are in gives rise to the thoughts that we have, correct? And most of us go with that flow of life. So we will go to a temple, we'll behave very well. We go into a scenario where someone becomes aggressive with us, we will allow ourselves to become tamaguni. We then no longer allow ourselves to choose. And that's most of us. We go through life based on the environments and the different gunas that give rise to us, and we act accordingly and we justify it. In our day, and everybody was gossiping, so I also gossiped. Everybody was talking bad about her. I also don't like her, so I also said the same thing. Right? You go, all of us have a habit of just going with that flow. What this shloka says is, instead of it starting from outside to inside, you can now choose to do it inside to outside. They're saying you're not dependent on the guna outside for your experience to be sataguni. If you're in a tamoguni environment, you can still be in sataguni. And we've seen examples of this, and we celebrate those examples. For example, Ram in Ramayana, right? For example, Gandhi in the freedom struggle, in the midst of violence, in the midst of being hit, being tortured, being suppressed, he never insulted. He never allowed himself to get into tamoguni. He stayed in Satagun.
Or Nelson Mandela.
Or Nelson Mandela, right? We celebrate these figures because they were in Satagun despite of their environment. And that is what this shloka is saying. Your ability to choose your guna is in your attitude. Your ability to choose your guna is in your bhav. That is it. If you refuse to see the negative, if you refuse to disengage with the unreal, which is sansaric things, and engage with the real, your reality will change. It is all, gunas only exist in your bhav. So regardless of Kalyug, you can always be in Sataguna. That's what we should aim to strive for. Increase the amount of time we stay in Sataguna. And I think now Tuna can elaborate a bit more on how we do that.
So all three gunas subsist together in the mind. This is important to always realize. Okay, you can't because gunas are the ones that create the kshetra, right? They are the very basic part of primal nature, right? So gunas will exist in everything, including, say, for example, 5 elements, right? So you take Akash. There is Satogun in Akash. There is Rajogun in Akash. There is Tamogun in Akash, correct? So similarly, we, in our mind, in our heart, in our intellect, in our body, everything, we will have all three subsist together. It's like, imagine a car, and in that car, you will always have 3 passengers. You can't have that car move forward without having all 3 passengers always boarded in it. All right. Now, what happens is that because of our past behaviors, actions, habits, whatever we've done in the past, one guna takes ascendancy over others. Okay? One has more power over others. And we continue to allow, if we do not intervene, right, that one guna will drive more actions than others. All right. That's the general behavior of a person. So that's a generally speaking, when you're not employing your human tendencies of being aware, your human tendencies of taking that control over your actions and making the choice. When you allow when you're being an animal, when you're acting as out of instinct, when you're not choosing to respond to a VVGP, when you're just reacting to a VVGP, that means you're acting like an animal. Okay? You're not being a human. A human responds, an animal reacts. So if we are reacting, we are being an animal. If you respond, we are being a human. So when we react as per whatever is the natural disposition. Right? That's what we call. We say that this is a natural disposition of a person. That natural disposition is determined by the composition of the 3 gunas in us at the time of birth. Okay. Now, that is one aspect. The second aspect is that the composition of or the ascendancy of the 3 gunas in us is also determined by external aspects. And those aspects have been mentioned here. Your birth, right? Your birth is one of those things. Birth as in like which country you're born in, what time, what place you're born in, what family you're born in, what sanskars you're able to get, what community you're born in, what the people around you do. right? All of that impacts your new sanskars that get created, new habits that get created, correct? So the new sanskars, the old sanskars that you're born with are the natural things, but then you can also create new sanskars. And your environment creates that effect. If you're born in an environment where you're only thinking about a utilitarian theory of life versus an environment which is constantly talking about how there is life beyond life, how there is, when you're talking about all of those things, your sanskars will get created accordingly, right? So it has an impact on the gunas that will eventually take ascendancy, right? Some of these things you can change, some of them you can't change. You can't change your old sanskars, but you can change your new sanskars through new actions. You cannot change your birth. That was already taken form, right? To experience certain product, but you can change your next birth through the actions being done in this lifetime, through the choices that we make in this lifetime, right? Apart from that, there are a lot of things that are more temporary in nature and can be influenced through active choices that can impact the ascendancy of the gunas or the composition of the gunas. When you're reading certain religious texts, or when you are when you're in a certain company of people, that company can be sang, that company can be satsang, right? So you can make a choice of that, who you hang out with, who do you want to spend time with, whose counsel you take, correct? All of these are things that you can choose and they will impact the gunas that rise up. Place, what place you are at, like the example Abhinav gave, when you are in a temple, the environment of that temple will automatically cause satogun to rise up. Okay. Time, the morning time versus a night time is a very stark example to take at. And our ancestors and the people who have given us these religious texts, they understand the impact of it, which is why early in the morning they have always prescribed wake up early enough, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. You should wake up early in the time, because from 3 o'clock onwards the satogun is on the rise. So when you wake up in the morning, they prescribe Brahmanical activities during that time. They prescribe Satoguni activities at that time. Study in the morning. When we were young, we were always told, study in the morning. Your mind is fresh. Okay, and we will talk about that in the next shloka, right? So I'll save that piece for then.
So,
But essentially, morning is more Satoguni. Your daytime is more Rajoguni. Your nighttime is more Tamoguni. So that impacts our thoughts and the ascendancy of the gunas, and use them appropriately for the right activities.
so for example, if you wake up in the morning, there is very little chance that you'll be like, chalo, let me just sit and watch Netflix. It'll just be physically impossible almost to do something as lazy an activity as that, right?
You can, if there is a huge ascendancy of
If there is,
Tamoguni
then
right
that's a
now.
moment of reflection, right? That the Tamoguni in you is so high, but typically you wouldn't, right?
I mean, the nature of that time is Satoguni in nature, right? So
Correct. On the offspring piece, right? I also read that you are given the birth of your child. Your child is born to you, and that child is actually perfect because it brings out all the tamoguni inside of you. It brings out all your vasanas that it bubbles up, right? So whatever is predominant inside of you, your offspring, the design is such that it brings that out inside of you, which is why Gita becomes really important as parents. So that when we deal with kids, we are able to control that tamoguni or that disposition we have and move it to a satoguni way of engaging with them. Yeah, sorry. Go on.
and then you can also choose, like meditation and mantras are other ways of which you can choose to implement to impact the gunas ascendancy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's
So
this,
generally speaking, there's always, at all points of time, there is one guna that is going to have a preponderance over the other two. Always. There is one that is more in preponderance compared to others, one in ascendancy over the others. And the guna that is in ascendancy over the other two directs the other two. It subdues the other two and directs them to do its bidding. Okay? And now in the next few shlokas, we will read when each of those three gunas are in ascendancy and are subduing the other two, what happens? What is the impact? Now let's understand that. Now that we've understood that out of the three gunas, there's always an ascendancy of one over the other, one subdues the other two. What is the impact of that? And why is it important for us to understand this aspect? Why is it not just okay to know that three subsist together? It's also important to know which one is controlling the other two and how. Okay, so let's start with that. And Nana, you want to read the next one?
In the next three shlokas, the Lord speaks of the indications which help in inferring which of the gunas is on the ascendant.
Yeah. So here, like what Abhinav said, right? Gunas are not pratyaksh. They are not, you can't see them with the eye, right? It's one of those things that you can infer. You can't see them, you can infer them. And for you to make an inference, you need certain data points. You need some clues. Okay, so the next shlokas are going to tell us what are those data points, what are those clues using which you will infer which guna is on the ascendancy. You can't see it, you can only infer it. Sarvadvareshu dehe asmin
Sarvadvareshu deheऽस्मिन्
prakasha upajayate
प्रकाश उपजायते
jnanam yada tada vidya
ज्ञानं यदा तदा विद्या
dve vridham satyam ityuta.
द्वे वृद्धं सत्त्वमित्युत. When light and discernment shine through every door in the body, then conclude that sattva is on the ascendant. Illumination and discernment. Marks of sattva. The word door in this shloka denotes each of the sense organs and the mind in the body, which receives the external sensations. When sattva guna is on the rise, the mind is illuminated with the light of discernment. This illumination of the mind makes all the senses and the organs of the body bright with the glow of consciousness, and it equips them with alertness and freshness. Due to this, they are primed to discharge their functions effectively. When this happens, it is an indication that sattva guna is on the rise in the mind. The illumination of the mind makes the faculty of discrimination sharp and pointed. There is a feeling of buoyancy and good cheer, and the senses and the body pursue the path of rectitude with zeal.
Okay, so first of all, the door, right, which has been mentioned, these are sense organs and the mind, right? So when there is light, prakash upajayate, when there is light, light of what? Light of knowledge and discernment, which shines through every sense organ. And as we read, mind is the sixth organ of both perception and of action, right? So when our eyes are discerning, we will only permit eyes to see the right things. And we will close our eyes when we see something that is not correct. Similarly, when there is light of discernment in our ears, we only listen to the right things. We will not listen to, for example, gossip. We let it pass through. When there is light of discernment in our nose, then we only smell the right things, right? We don't allow smell of food to completely control my mind and go crazy. Oh, I want to eat, I want to eat, I want to eat, right? You have control. You have sense of discernment in your tongue. Then there is discernment on what you eat, right? There is discernment on what you speak, correct? when there's discernment in your mind, there is light of discernment in your mind, then you make the right choices. Your mind is then turned towards, is being controlled by your intellect, which is turned towards Bhagwanji, right? So that is the situation that we're talking about. When light of discernment and knowledge shines through every door, what happens? That means your sato gun is on the ascendancy in your mind. Okay, your mind controls. Remember that that picturization we've got. The mind is the sarthi, is the lagam of the organs, right? It is the reins which control the horses. So if sato gun is on ascendancy in your mind, there is sato guni ascendancy in all of your organs as well. All right. And when that happens, then what happens? Every part of you, every one of your sense organs is alert. It is fresh. It is full of consciousness. And it is conscious about what it's consuming and how it is interpreting each of the stimulus that is coming through all of those organs, sense organs. Okay. And your mind is very sharp and alert. And when your mind is sharp and alert, it is able to discern between the good and the bad. In your mind, there is medha vriddhi. There is increase of medha, there is increase in dhriti, which basically means that one, when there is ascendancy of sato gun, you have the inclination to acquire more knowledge. All right, inclination to acquire more knowledge, but also your ability to learn from that knowledge is pretty high. And then your retention of that knowledge is extremely high. One thing is to acquire knowledge. Second thing is to actually understand it, right? Somebody shows you some, uh, mathematical equations. One thing is to actually learn about it, ratliya. That is one aspect of acquiring knowledge, right? That is on the high. Second is to understand what those equations really, really mean and how they are to be applied. That's the second part. Okay, that is the ability to learn is on the high. The third is being able to retain that knowledge, to learn it, to remember it, and actually apply it when the time comes. Right? Satsang mein baithna, it is on the rise, right? Because you are acquiring knowledge. And then second is being able to learn what that knowledge really means. I learned 2 shlokas today. What do they really mean? Understanding it, ability to learn is important. And then third is dhriti, that you are able to retain that and then bring it back up into action. So when Satogun is on the rise, these 3 activities are on the rise as well. So this is one of those data points that you can use, right? Apart from what you're consuming and how discerning you are about consuming from all your 5 organs. These are all those data points that will help you understand that at this stage, Satogun is on the rise. Another thing that will help you is that, see, when you are tranquility and peace will be on the rise. You will generally feel quite calm. You'll feel peaceful, which means that if somebody does something wrong, your ability to deal with that VVGP will be in a very peaceful manner. You won't scream or shout at the other person. You'll find a more effective way of communicating. Okay, so that means your Satogun is on the rise. And when you are tranquil, when you're calm, when your mind is calm and tranquil and peaceful, that mind is a cognitive mind. A cognitive mind is a receptive mind. A receptive mind learns fast. That is why your medha vriddhi and your dhriti vriddhi happens. That is why your ability to learn when Satogun is on the rise and your ability to retain what you learn becomes high when Satogun is on the rise because of peace and tranquility and calmness that it brings.
So there is an other element of uh, sattva, which is it brings lightness. And I think all of us have experienced these moments of absolute lightness, gratefulness, beauty, love that we're like, wow, this just No, no, random Tuesday in a random setting. Some people get it in nature, some people get it sitting where they are. That feeling is sattva. You hold on to that feeling on and if we can prolong that, that's moksha.
Correct.
Right?
And see, there is another thing here which says, right, that the body pursues the path of rectitude with zeal. Okay, Satogun doesn't mean that you will not be in action. Your body will always be in action. But how much action and what action becomes important, because discernment is on the high, correct? Your mind is discerning really well. So it is able to discern what is the right action and how much should I do it, and what is not the right action, what should I not do. You don't overdo anything. And you follow, so you will do the right actions with full zeal.
Culturally, as Indians, most people I come across, and I'm not generalizing, but I'm just saying culturally what I've noticed, we find it very hard to say no. And then we take on a task, and then we get irritated if that task becomes too long or too prolonged or whatever. And that's just a classic example of us trying to please others,
Which is tamogun.
which is tamagun. And because Rajugun is on our rise, we feel, oh, doing work and doing tasks is really important. So I can't say no, so I have to help. Right? And in the garb of helping people, you think you're doing the right thing, but you're negative inside because you did not want to do it in the right way. Other person is not taking, you feel is taking advantage of you. All of that.
That's full tamogun on the
It all
rise.
becomes tamagun. In Satagun, every task that we do, the completion of that task is nothing but joy. That is when you know you're in Satagun. And the only way
And
we've
you
read this
will
in
be able
Karma
to say
Yoga, we've the way we've understood this earlier is for a task to be light and for us to feel joy at the end of that task, we have to do it for Bhagavanji. That's it. In Satagun, everything is being done for his pleasure. You know that. Right? So every time you feel burnt out, you feel I'm exhausted, I'm tired, all of these conversations we have, be aware something, it's not Satagun in the driver's seat. Your starting point, your bhav with which you tackle that task was either Rajagun, which moved to Tamagun, or it was Tamagun to begin with. And this entire conversation of tiredness and burnt out and, like low energy, all this comes in the evening because Tamagun meets Tamagun. 9 o'clock in the morning, you'll still go push, hammer through. Your Rajagun is in the rise. By 7 o'clock, your Rajaguni bhav, your Rajaguni time has gone down, your Tamaguni time in Sansar has come up, it evokes your Tamagun. And then it said, let's go out, and then you start saying negative about other people, and then the whole 9 yards.
And again, here what the example that Abhinav gave, please don't make that don't interpret it to mean that, oh, night everybody will do all wrong activities or tamogun is bad. It is just the example that he gave, right?
Yeah, I mean, Tamagun has its own
is
purpose.
extremely important. Tamogun has to go on the rise because your senses and your body needs rest. End of the day, after having done everything else that it needs to do, after having done all its activity, right? It needs to calm down. So when Satogun is on the rise, it will use that Tamoguni time to get Satoguni rest. Okay. So all the gunas are extremely important. How they get utilized is very important, and what guna is on the ascendancy is important. Satogun driving Rajogun and Tamogun is the perfect space to be in, which is how we want to lead our lives. Use Tamogun, use Rajogun which is being guided by Satogun. Okay, when Tamogun starts to be on the rise, then you will see even your Satoguni activities will be like the example that Abhinav gave. Charity, right? You do charity with Rajogun Bhav or with Tamogun on the ascendancy. Even that Satoguni activity will only lead to Tamogun, further Tamogun.
Charity is something we talk a lot about in this chapter. But when you reflect upon it, we from a gross way, we understand charity as giving dan, right? Giving money to somebody or helping somebody and working in NGO or whatever, right? And giving money, right? That's the two, three easy
Money
ways.
or,
2, 3 easy ways we understand charity. But if you actually do some manan and reflect upon it, every act we do is an act of charity. Every
Can.
act we do can be an act of seva. Whether it's seva to your wife, whether it's seva to your children, whether it's seva to anything. That's what a karma yogi strives for. So when they say Satugun may, you should, and we are going way ahead, right? This all comes later on in the shlokas, but when they say Satugun actions mean charity, you realize that's the seva bhav. That's it.
Hmm.
That is there everywhere.
Correct.
But yeah, I think we're yeah.
And let's read the next two shlokas quickly, and then I think a lot of this will start to make better sense because it will connect together, right? Kakuli, you want to read the next one?
What are the characteristic marks of predominance of Rajas? The Lord describes them thus:
Lobha pravrittirarambha
Lobha pravittir arambah,
karmanam shamah spriha
karmanam ashamaspriha,
rajasyetani jayante
rajasyetani jayante,
vivruddhe bharatarshava.
vivriddhe bharatarshava. Avarice, activity, undertaking of motivated actions, restlessness, craving. These rises uppermost with Rajas when Rajas prevails, O best of Bharatas.
So
A-
so avarice here means likes, dislikes, desires, greed. Right? That's the meaning of the word avarice.
Here.
Yeah.
Where did you-
Activity, restlessness, avarice, marks of Rajas. When Rajas is on the ascendant, the sense of avarice completely clouds the mind. Discontented with with what one possesses, one craves to have more and more. So much so that one does not hesitate even to grab what belongs to others. The multitude of desires fill up the mind, and the mind starts calculating how they can be fulfilled. Initiation of new projects is planned not only for satisfaction of desire but also out of greed. The mind and senses are restless and agitated with the apprehension of any loss that might accrue by any setback to the projects. Cravings severely disturb peace of mind. The mind is constantly torn by ambitions to possess what others have.
So actions we have to do. We understand that actions which are motivated by likes, desires, greed, uh, uh, are rajas actions. Rajas actions will always lead to stress and tension. They will never be accompanied with lightness. They will be accompanied with heavy eyes. They'll be accompanied with heavy body. Like, oh my God, I have to do this also. Oh my God, ye bhi karna hai. Oh my God, I have to fall. Like that just creates a lot of stress and tension. And that stress and tension has no other purpose but for it to be a red flag for you. Hey, I've gone way too deep into Rajagun. How do I bring Satagun in this activity? Right? So every time you feel stressed or tension, it's a moment to reflect because it's a red flag. That's it. And use it as a red flag. That's why it exists. Right? And then become conscious again. So when an action is done with the right principle and the right purpose, it is Satagun. When it is motivated by likes, dislikes, and desires, it is Rajagun.
So when Rajogun is on the ascendancy, what is on the ascendancy? Karma vriddhi, increase of action. We are constantly in a space of more programs, more plans, more yes, say yes to everything. You're constantly just planning for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. New programs are being added to your schedule. This is the hallmark of Rajogun being on the ascendancy. There is no discernment of whether you should say yes or you should say no to a certain activity. You're quite reckless in just filling up your, because otherwise FOMO ho jata hai, right? The whole YOLO and the FOMO. YOLO chalo, YOLO is still more tamoguni. FOMO comes from Rajogun on the ascendancy.
You know, if you just observe our own families, right? You observe your parents or your grandparents when you were smaller, younger, what you remember of them. You will notice that before the world had electricity also, for that matter, you would notice that all of them, you'd wake up early, all of them would do their morning exercise, would do their walk, would do their meditation, they'd all get a bath and pray. And then we would wake up at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, or whatever as children. And by then the house is filled with hustle bustle. The kitchen is running, the pressure cooker has started, the cleaning in the house is happening, Papa is getting ready for office. And by 9:30, breakfast is done, lunch is done in the house, right? So you can see how design of life is designed in that way, right? And we've experienced it all our lives. It's just that now we're no longer conscious. With the advent of electricity and light and everything being 24 hours, we've lost our ability to be in sync with the gunas and its purpose. So now people stay up all night and then sleep in the day, and then they're perpetually tired, and then they fall sick and they wonder why, right?
Rituj, will you read the next one?
The Lord now describes the characteristic symptoms of the rise of tamas.
Prakasho pravrittischa
Aprakasho pravrittischa
pramado moha eva cha
pramado moha eva cha
tamasyetani jayante
tamasyetani jayante
vivruddhe kuru nandana.
vivriddhe kuru nandana. Lack of enlightenment, inertness, useless activity, and also delusion. These rise uppermost when tamas is on the ascendant, or Kurunandana. Inertness and useless activity. When tamogund is on the ascendant, the mind, intellect, and senses seem to be covered with a haze. The mind is in a turmoil, but the impulsion to action, which is the result of Rajagun, is absent, and consequently, there is no desire for action. In such a frame of mind, what is proper appears to be improper, and vice versa, with the result that either one is lazy or one engages in useless activity. Sleep is used not for giving rest to the body and senses, but to get pleasure, if possible, by sleeping more and more, gradually. Gradually, memory becomes weakened, and the power of decision is also adversely affected. A clear understanding of the symptoms of the three gunas is necessary, for in the daily life of everyone, the gunas keep on predominating by turn. When sattvagun is on the ascendant, the natural inclination of the person is towards self-realization. Rajagun induces the desire to have more of worldly enjoyments. Supremacy of tamogun either creates despondency or else unburdened exaltation.
Okay, just pause here, right? Uh, so Tamagun is again something all of us have experienced, and experienced it in a negative way on a regular basis, right? And I'll give you some characteristics of behaviors which we might relate to. One is procrastination, right? When we know we have a particular task to do, but we keep procrastinating, right? The other tamaguni activity that we very quickly fall into is being lazy. We know we have work to do, but we're just like, you know what, don't want to do it. Absorbing useless content for the sake of content. And that is something that is on the rise. I'm astonished how much 20-year-olds and teenagers and cousins of mine in India, they'll go on a holiday to Goa, and then the three of them or the four of them will stay in a villa or whatever. They'll be in their 4 rooms, and all four will be watching content. And what do you like all night? They'll just like back to back just watch an entire series. And it's incredible how every week there is so much to watch and people are just consuming without any purpose. Oh, have you seen this thing? Yeah, I haven't. It's amazing. It's amazing. In the garb of like, oh, it's a true story, it's a true crime story, whatever it is, people end up watching 6 hours of it. Useless content. Did it bring the Satoguna out of you? Probably not. Right? All of these are tamoguni activities we deeply can relate.
So tamogun causes what? Ascendancy of tamogun causes moha vriddhi, causes an increase in attachment, an attachment to wrong things. Moha vriddhi, delusion, it causes lots of delusion. What Bhagyashri mentioned, right? It causes an inability, that delusion causes inability to discern what is right, what is wrong, what I should do, what I should not do. Okay. It does nidra vriddhi. It causes increase in sleep or sleepiness or tiredness. That's tamogun on the ascendancy. A person who is, that's why you would see, one of the hallmarks of depression is the person is persistently tired, exhausted, sleepy. A depressed person sleeps a lot. Tamogun on ascendancy, ghor tamogun on the ascendancy. Okay. The other thing what Abhinav mentioned, pramad vriddhi. Pramad vriddhi, increase in negligence, increase in laziness, increase in or predisposition to procrastination, oversight. There's an increase in mistakes that we do in whatever, even if we are in action, we are doing things wrongly with a lot of mistakes. That's tamogun on the rise. Okay. Important to understand that tamogun is all gunas are very closely related. Very closely related, right? So tamogun and satogun are very closely related in the sense that sometimes you can see the same activity can look very much like tamogun, but maybe a satoguni activity. Or a or an activity may look like satoguni activity, but maybe completely tamoguni. Right? So the hallmark of tamogun is inertia, right? And it causes inertness. So a person sitting completely still, not talking to people, right, is completely still, may or is like completely calm. You may say, oh, he's being very lazy, he's sleeping, but actually that person may be meditating, right? A person may be dwelling on something, solving an issue, solving a problem, right? A research scientist can seem like he's doing nothing. He's just sitting and just thinking, or he's like whiling away his time, that he's daydreaming. But he may actually be focusing on solving a problem. So it may look very tamoguni, inert, not doing anything, yet maybe satoguni meditation on a problem. Okay. Or you might see somebody sitting in a meditative posture and look like he's meditating, but he may be completely tamoguni inside because his mind is switched off. He's sleeping actually in his mind. He's not consciously meditating, he's sleeping, right? We've experienced that a lot of times. Sit down to meditate and after 15 minutes, you're actually dozing off, right? Nodding off, nodding off. If you see that, like you see a group of people meditating, you'll start to see people slouching forward and all. That's tamogun, even though it looks like a very satoguni activity, right? So they can be very closely related.
So the way to identify tamoguni inside of you
Mm.
from an experience perspective It's feelings of anxiousness, feelings of restlessness, and feelings where you want to blame others. Feelings where you feel, oh my God, I'm so good, the others are so whatever, not as good, right? Feelings where anything that wrong happens, you're like, man, I just can't catch a break. It's always somebody else's fault, right? Feelings where you deeply want to control the other person, whether it's your child or somebody else. They have to do it this way. They don't do it that. That's all tamaguni experiences inside of us.
Correct. And even if you are in inaction, but internally you are calm, you're composed, you're peaceful, that means that even if you are in inaction, you are in Satogun, in a space of Satogun. Similarly, excessive Rajogun always leads to Tamogun. There's no doubt about that. Okay, excessive Tamogun, excessive Rajogun, where you're constantly running after desires, you're running after expectations, you're deeply attached to certain outcomes and expectations from people and your activities. That Rajogun will constantly fuel itself. So if you get what you wanted to achieve, what that Rajogun was for, it will cause another desire to replace the previous one and will create another layer of Rajogun to start, another cycle of Rajogun to start. Or you will not get what you wanted to achieve and it will immediately slide you into Tamogun. And you'll be angry, you will be upset, right? So Rajogun will fuel further Rajogun or it will fuel Tamogun, right? Satogun can also fuel Tamogun, right? A person who is in space of Satogun and is attached to that sense of peace and tranquility. You're sitting down in a very peaceful way. You're going into meditation. Satogun is on the ascendancy, and then somebody comes and disturbs you. Phone rings, bell rings. Immediate Tamogun irritation will rise up. You're angry, you're upset, and you're blaming that VVGP, that person or whatever. Out of Satogun, you're immediately in Tamogun, right? So you slide from one to the other very, very seamlessly if you're not aware, okay? And if you don't catch yourself. Another example that Abhinav gave much earlier, which I wanted to bring out, and then Bhagishri, I'll come to you. What was that? Abhinav had given the example of a temple, right, in the beginning of the class. That when he was talking about how environments affects ascendancy of gunas, right? So it's important to realize this, that one big characteristic of tamogun is inertia. Inertia means continuing to do what you are doing without being aware of it, without consciously choosing it. Okay? When you're not consciously choosing, when you're not responding, you're reacting or you're acting out of instincts, you're in tamogun. You're being animalistic. Okay? So now you go into a temple, because of the external vibes of that space, your satogun rises up. But you're not aware of it. Which means now you are in temple, you are in a satsang, you will act very nicely to everybody. Okay? You're acting out of niceness, not by being aware, but because of the environmental reasons. It is causing you to act in a certain way. You're not choosing to be that person. All right? You're not choosing to be that person. Even in that Satoguni space, Satoguni behavior of being nice to people, behaving really well, you are still in Tamogun. Because you have not consciously understood that and you are acting out of instinct. Other things are controlling you. There's no choice on your part. That is Tamoguni. You are being in full Tamogun. Tamogun is on the ascendancy. Even while you are in a Satoguni space, doing Satoguni activities. If you are conscious, because what happens in this space is that you are in Tamogun, right? You are acting out of inertia. You come out of that space, you've taken nothing out of it. You from after attending that satsang or after attending a temple, go to your office. Immediate Rajogun comes in. Okay, there is no calmness anymore. that your boss comes in front of you, that colleague who irritated you comes in front of you, immediately you're full of irritation or anxiety or anger. So what's happening here? This is hallmark of tamogun, inertia. You're not making an active choice. If, however, when you were in satsang, when you were in that temple, in that satoguni environment, when you were in the company of a great person, you were conscious, you would absorb that satogun consciously. You will absorb that tranquility, that discernment of what I want to do and how I want to be. You will absorb that consciously and you will take it out with you. You will carry it with you. You will fill yourself up consciously with that satogun, and be with that consciousness you come out. And then you go into office, then you go into any other place and you carry that satogun and you allow that, you keep that on the ascendancy, your actions will be of response, calibrated, discerned response to your VVGP when you come out of it. That is satogun on the ascendancy. Make sense? Yeah, Bhagyashree, you had a question.
Yeah, so like in one guna also there are many different types. For example, let's say Kakuli is in Tamoguna and she's just sleeping more and being lazy. I am also in Tamoguna, but I am awake and doing useless activities. So even the guna is same, we are still very different because she's sleeping and I'm awake but still doing useless activities. The guna is same. So, but since we are different, she will need a different sadhana to go from tamoguna to rajoguna and to satoguna, and I will need a different sadhana, right? Because we are in same gunas but doing different things. So how to identify what will be my sadhana versus Kakoli's or someone else's?
Very, very good question. So I wouldn't say that in gunas, there are different gunas. That's not the right way to put it. Okay. Every activity that you do, any activity, sleep or the pramadic activities that you were talking about, right? Irrespective of the activity, first of all, activities are not by themselves tamoguni or satoguni or rajoguni at all, right? We had touched upon it even in our last class. Shopping as an example, which we touched upon last time. Shopping by activity itself does not have a guna nature to it. Similarly, sleep or watching TV or being on social media by themselves cannot be classified as if it is this or that or that. Okay, it is the attitude, the purpose with which the purpose and the bhav with which we are engaging in that activity, that creates that marks it as being rajoguni or tamoguni or satoguni, right? For example, sleep, right? If you were to go to sleep, you have to go to sleep. It's design of the nature. You need rest. Rest is the bedrock of all activity. Okay. The quality of activity that you do to get that rest and how you go about it is important and will be driven by your purpose and your with your bhav. Okay. So for example, you want to take rest and you decide to go to sleep. Okay. You go to sleep in a very conscious manner, saying that I need to sleep, my body and my senses need rest now, so that tomorrow they wake up in the morning and they are fully re-energized to do the duty. You will go to sleep, you will get as much rest. Sometimes you will need less rest, sometimes you will need more rest. Sometimes you will need 4 hours, sometimes you'll be refreshed in 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours. Sometimes you will need 8 hours because you toiled a lot yesterday, or because you were really exhausted, whatever, right? It doesn't matter the amount that you're sleeping, but you're sleeping for the amount that your body needs to rest. And when you wake up, you're fresh, energized, and you're ready to do your duty. Okay, that's sleep. And you are conscious, right? Before sleep, you meditate or you give 5-second prayer to Bhagwan Ji. You say thank you to Bhagwan Ji for the wonderful day it was. You thank him for all the blessings he gave you today. You request to him कि अब मैं सोने जा रहा हूँ. May the Nidra Devi come and give me that rest that I need through this body. And then you go to sleep and you pray to him that I wake up next day full of energy to do your duty because I'm your servant, I'm your whatever, like whatever is your relationship with Bhagwanji, right? It's a very satoguni rest. Okay. You go for a movie. You're going out for a movie to, yes. You go out for a movie with your child to bond with him specifically, right? Because you need to get that. It's a very, so by, first of all, activities by themselves are not to be labeled at all as satoguni or tamoguni or rajoguni. So because Bhagyashri is on Facebook, I cannot judge her, oh, she's doing all pramad. Kakoli sleeping, I cannot judge her, oh, she's in a tamoguni space. How do I know what is the purpose of you doing those activities? If I am doing that kind of labeling, then I am in tamogun. I am in Ghor tamogun if I'm doing that.
So this entire,
Because I'm in judgment. I'm in a space of judgment.
this is why Gita journey is all about your own journey. We cannot look at somebody else's journey and identify what, or even judge. That's not what it is. But coming to your question, how do you identify
What is
your
your
sadhana?
Yeah.
Right?
So-
that is a very important question.
Yeah.
And that is unique to you. And your answers will come from within you.
Can I actually touch upon that? Okay. So that's the first thing. First thing is because I really wanted it to be extremely crystal clear that an activity by itself cannot be classified as one or the other. Okay. Very, very important to know because that's biggest thing that we end up doing, right? Second is now that I've recognized that I am doing social media or I'm sleeping excessively, I'm doing social media from a tamoguni perspective, right? One tamoguni activity we do a lot is consuming information that Abhinav said. We are reading news. Boss, I'm reading news. So it must be very satoguni. No, boss. Most of us are in a space of massive tamogun when we are reading news. Okay. So now that you've recognized that I have a certain thing, you have to so there is a very clear step ladder to go from one to the other. Okay. Nobody, you cannot potentially go from tamogun to satogun immediately. It doesn't happen. That revolution doesn't happen. That revolution is not part of God's design. God's design is very evolutionary, always evolutionary, step by step by step by step. How does that happen? If you recognize that a part of your life, no, you will never be tamoguni in everything. None of us. We are not all the time in satogun, all the time in tamogun, all the time in rajogun. Now, Bhagyashri is in satogun in 5 different activities, but there are 2 activities in which she is in tamogun. For example, with respect to Facebook. I'm addicted to Facebook and I'm constantly on this thing and I'm constantly going or Instagram, right? As an example, right? I'm tamoguni on that part of my life. So from tamogun, we first have to go to rajogun. Okay. And rajogun with sakam bhav. That's my very first step. So you have to first figure out how do you go from tamogun to rajogun with sakam bhav. I will think about doing an activity with benefits for myself. What is in it for me? Recognize that first. What is in it? What is in this for me? How will I benefit out of this? If I start to release the release the tamogun in this particular activity. If I am very sleepy all the time, I don't want to wake up at 4 a.m. First, define what is the benefit in it for you. How will you benefit? Focus on that benefit strongly. List out those benefits for yourself for going away from that tamogun or for delivering yourself into a rajoguni activity. If you're now, how do you go from one to the other depends on that particular activity as Bhagyashri correctly recognized, right? That activity could be either giving up. I will not go on social media, or it could be acquiring a new habit. I want to wake up in the morning, right? Depending on what is it that you are trying to release tamogun out of, you either have to give up or you have to do something new, acquire something new. Find out what's the benefit for you. Focus exclusively on personal benefit. That will motivate you to go to the next stage. And then hold on to it very tightly. from a very personal, motivated benefit for yourself. Sakam karma. That is why Sakam karma has been prescribed in Vedas in the first place. They help you go from Tamogun to Rajogun with a Sakam half. Then once you have stabilized yourself there, then from there you go to the next level of doing the same activity but with a Nishkam bhav. Now now that I have got all these benefits, how can I help others? First, I was on social media for only showing off to people how beautiful my life is, or because I want to like judge others, I want to have gossip about others. Now I start to use social media for my personal benefit. I find out that I can use social media to figure out what are the best places to eat, what are the best places to buy my stuff, or to find my helper, or or I can find things for myself. So I can use social media effectively for my purposes rather than for pramad. Okay, I can use it to increase my business. I can promote myself there or my services, right? Using social media for my personal benefit. Now that I've figured that out and I have got that under control, Nishkam Bhav, how can I help others to use this tool effectively? That's my next step. And then comes from Nishkam Bhav to being on top of that also. Okay, so in Nishkam Bhav already now you have got to a Rajogun, which is being controlled by Satogun. From there, you go completely to Satogun. In all of this space, you have been addicted to using it. And if you did not use social media on a particular day for yourself or for others, you would get a FOMO. I'm missing something out. Then you go to completely like going past all of this and you're saying, now I will use it the day I need to use it. The day I don't need to use it, it doesn't matter. It does not have an effect on me. It does not control me any longer. I control it completely. It does not control me. It has no binding effect on me. Those are the steps you will do. So depending on that particular activity, this is the framework to use to rise from tamogun to rajogun with personal motivated benefits for yourself to nishkam bhav to being able to go past it so that it has no effect on you. Now that particular sadhana, as Abhinav very clearly mentioned, is very specific to you and that particular activity which is binding you in the mogun. But this is a framework that I just described, right? So then the particular application of that framework for social media versus for sleep will be very different. Will be very different for drinking. Will be very different for being addicted to food. Will be very different from being addicted to praise. Make sense?
Yes, Kakoli, who sleeps a lot, you may speak. You're on mute.
You're on mute, Kakali.
I have a very peculiar situation and I don't know whether I have to take it offline, but I have a situation in which I don't know how to bring Satoguni to the driving seat. It may sound silly, but it is not. It is, I think that's the only issue I have in life now. So 3 years back when I joined Geeta, I have a very close college and school friend who wanted to, because she said, oh, I will also do. So I reached out to Abhinav and he's put me onto a Delhi source which I'd given, and she is part of one of the Delhi groups. When I came into RCM, she wanted to do RCM. So I put her there. It reached this ashram also. So she wants to do everything in the ashram. However, because of Geeta, RCM, when I got the scholarship lead and she wanted to do, I went back, I really stood in front of Swamiji's picture and said, I know I can't put my personal, whatever feelings. Now I'm very nice otherwise. These are all disturbances. I go to Sanchita and discuss, and she thrashes me out saying, I don't understand why you even, she's very annoyed with me that I said, fine, this is work. She also needs to do the seva, and I put her there. All this is there. Though I feel very disturbed, there's a lot of like spiritual competition and it is eating into me. Now, recently, when I wanted to do the Sadhak Sanjeevani, and I also told y'all, and you all said, good, I mean, do the learning, but don't do a lot. So when Shalini, this was the only time I did not tell her that I have joined another satsang. But then Shalini asked Kumar to put the videos, and the first video, it had, the whole class in it. And 3 days back, she came back to me. She said, "Oh, you are in this Sadhak Sanjeevani class, which everyone speaks about in our Ramcharitmanas. I want to join that." I said, "I don't know. I cannot recommend. It's a class which is very small class. You can go yourself and check." And she, I think, would have reached out to Kumar, Shalini. I don't know. She joined. It's all okay. It is God's class. But I'm so disturbed with the fact many times when I've spoken to someone, they'll say, "Oh, you have inspired." But this has now reached a stage where I feel claustrophobic that such a close friend is just wanting to do something because I am doing. It is disturbing me. It may sound very silly. I don't know. It is really disturbing me. And I have learned over all these satsangs, I cannot change another person. So I need to change my thought. In this situation, how do I bring my Satogun in? I'm not doing anything. It's okay. She is in whichever class, but it's creating a pressure on me. And Tuina Abhinav Ashram Swamiji is he's not a very conventional sadhu. He's a very unconventional saint. So he writes. We respond to those writings. He has a social media platform. We are supposed to join those we put up posts there. There's good interaction with me, with Sadhvijis. When I write an email, I will get a response. And it is maybe his grace. Maybe he sees that I really try to, walk this path, but I'm just very bogged down. And I'm sorry I'm taking this time, but I needed a solution. Many times I thought of reaching out to y'all separately, but I know all of us are caught up and I didn't want to, but I asked Sanchita in the side that can I bring this up? She said, yes, please do. And that's why if you want to take this offline, I'm okay, but I need someone to tell me. This is the only anxiety in my life. Can you believe it? Like, I don't know how to. I'm getting very closed up and irritated with it now.
So thanks for sharing. And this class is definitely the forum for you to bring up things that are troubling you, that are taking you away from your Satagun. Because what you're experiencing, all of us would be experiencing at different degrees at different places in our life, right? It manifests in very different ways. Coming to your situation specifically, so it's a lot of inquiry you have to do for yourself. With what bhav, with what purpose did you invite her to join the class? What bhav, what purpose did she share with you on why she joined the class, right? So I think all of you would remember, right? Before you joined this class, I always had a conversation. What is your purpose? What is the bhav with which you're joining? Why do you really want to join at this point in time, right? Why not 2 years from now? And all of you had very real reasons on personal development, on growth, on finding happiness, on peace, all of these things, right? I want to become a better version of myself. And you're like, yeah, that's amazing. That's exactly what we aim to achieve through scriptures, right? Now, the fact that she's joined all these classes, firstly, it is, if she's not joined it with the right bhav, you would know she wouldn't have the legs to survive it, right? Sansar will come in, 10 things will come in. We know from our own experience that this is one of the first things that get dropped off, right? So she won't have the legs for it. But if she joined with the right bhav, then you've done a great job. You've allowed somebody else to now flourish and reach the best version of yourself. And the amount of effort that you're putting in with the multiple classes that you're going in, your friendship with her would only blossom to a point where you would reach pure love. Your every conversation with her will become Satagun.
I mean, that's ideally what should happen, but if it is not,
But
what
right,
I would invite Kakoli is that, so Abhinav is pretty good at asking the right kind of questions to create self-inquiry, right? End of the day, this is going to be self-inquiry, right? Everything in our life is about self-inquiry, right? So this is a great example. And thank you for bringing it up. I think I would invite Abhinav and you to have a one-on-one. Okay? Abhinav, are you okay with it? I'm volunteering you for it. He is... So he's very, very good at asking the right questions. And he will lead you with the questions, which will invite you into a self-inquiry, which will help you figure out what's really going on here,
Okay.
and then how to get out of it, how to conquer
Yeah.
over whatever it is that is disturbing you.
Okay.
Okay.
That will be really helpful. Yes.
Yeah. No, he's very good with those questions. So
Okay.
let's do that, right, Abhinav? You will figure out a time with her, and
Okay.
because I think it is, I don't think we would have addressed it here. I think we've addressed it partially in the sense at a very superficial level. But I think you need time or to think this through. And like we've got 10 minutes left. So I don't think we'll be able to do justice to the question.
Takeaways also.
Okay.
So let's take this up. And after that, I would love it if you're comfortable later on. And once you've resolved it, you can share it in the class
Yeah,
so that
yeah.
everybody else can learn from it as
Yes, yeah. I will. Thank you so much.
well. You
Yeah.
have to take that up.
Should we
So
takeaways?
yeah, let's do takeaways now.
Should we complete the shlok because one part is left, or do we take it later?
I think no, this the last part is basically a sort of like a coming together of what we've done thus far. So the desires and the garb of beauty. Let's take this up in the next class, because we will do what we'll do is we will do a quick round of what do you call it? Summary. And in the summary, I would want 3 different people talking about 3 different gunas. And then we will come to this because it would be a good inflection after the summary. Okay.
Should I just start on my takeaway then?
Yes. Yes.
So what connected with me during the class was about the importance of Sattvagun and how the best way to go about with it is Sattvagun being in the driver's seat and leading Tamagun and Rajogun, because and how all gunas are important, and it's not that one is the other, and how in Sattvagun for me, and that's what I want to aspire, is to be as tranquil and have a peaceful and calm and composed mind, because then only all my activities and my the right of discernment, like to discern what is right and wrong, and with everything is what is the mantra that I want to practice this week. And also the fact that from Bhagyashrie's question about how the activity does not come in the gunas, and but it's just the activity, it's a tool, and how you use it and with purpose and bhav and intention makes it in which guna it falls. So that's what I learned.
Yes.
I think I can go next. It's the long short of it is that any activity that leads to Satchit Anand, that gives you a feeling of those 3 experience, is a Sataguna activity. So whether you are sleeping and it's a restful sleep, then it is a feeling of bliss in the morning, then that's a Sataguna activity that you have gone through. Even though in the carb, it is more like a Tamoguna activity. Likewise, watching something when you're at the end of the day or when you're really tired and not able to do anything, instead of doing something and snapping people out, I think that is also one of those Sataguna activity that we are doing in the form of that. So that is very experienced, and that is where we all falter, because in the name of Rajas, we keep doing things and then we snap, we get angry, we have expectations, and which is where we lead these tamoguna into ourselves. So I think being mindful of that, and which is where also saying no to certain activities, and it's not just no saying no to someone else, but it's also saying no to ourselves, because I'm a very dynamic person, so I realize that that dynamism should lead to some satoguna and some peacefulness rather than just doing things. So I think that would be an important experience to kind of live through.
Amazing.
I can go. For me, the takeaway was that every act has to be an act of seva, and to do that, I should be at every point, I should be aware of the bhav with which I'm doing it. And what, like right now Smita said, as long as the more I feel peace doing an activity is more I'm moving towards Satogun. And the more I'm agitated means I'm somewhere there between Tamogun and Rajogun, and I need to take those corrective actions at every point. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Shall I go? For me, the takeaway is that when we are not always in one particular guna, so it's a breakup of different gunas, and being conscious of it uh, brings us closer to our purpose of moving away from rajas and sattva. So I think the inertia part is where, like, you're doing mindlessly whatever you're doing without understanding the purpose, just following going with the flow. That getting away from that and just being conscious of the purpose of every activity. That's the target, and of course the the format you gave for breaking up that pattern, like from first you from tamas, if you want to move away, just move to rajas and then to sattva, and then go beyond the gunas. So would like to keep that in mind always. Thank you.
So I'll go. So here, how in this Shloka 10 we saw that there are like that there's a place, time, actions, and all those things which can influence the gunas, as in which guna we are in. So I will always so this is my takeaway, that I will be aware of these things, and then identify that which guna is which guna I am in, depending on all these things, because also because of few things which I have identified, some specific things that if I do this, I know that I am in Rajogun. So versus if I don't do it, I know I am not in Rajogun. So I know that yes, some of the actions can bring you in any gunas, depending whether you do that action or how you do it. So I'll now just go into deep of all these things, like religious texts, mantras, meditation, and see like how to change the guna which I'm in if it's not satogun.
Absolutely. So with Rajogun, right? Rajogun, when we recognize that there is an excessive of Rajogun in us, there are two things to do. One, you want to bring in more Satogun, right? How will you bring in Satogun? One is that you have to discern why you're doing a certain activity and learn to say no, reduce the clutter, do less activities. That is very important for when we are in that excessive, unbridled Rajogun. To bring it under control, you have to learn to say no, to create mind space and physical space and time space for yourself. Because only then you can create space to think and to discern. So you have to learn to say no. That's very important. Second, if you are unable to say no, then try and replace some activities, whether you say no or not. Replace some of your activities with more satoguni activities, or the activities that will promote more satogun in you. Like mantra jap, like swadhyay, like reading of scriptures, like joining some satsang. करना ही है कोई activity, because I am in so much FOMO कि मुझसे no नहीं कहा जा रहा है, भरना ही है पूरा दिन. तो try and fill it up with at least a few satoguni activities, and those satoguni activities will drive more satogun in your life to be able to start having the discernment of when to say no to what. है ना? Now tamogun again. Tamogun, I'll come back and say one thing. Tamogun, when it is in the service of Satogun, can be extremely good. Because what is Tamogun? Inertia, right? One characteristic is inertia. Once you put something into action, it will continue to go unless there is an external force that is applied to change the direction of the body, correct? That is one of the major characteristics of Tamogun. Now imagine Tamogun in the in the service of Satogun means you create a good habit, and after that you let Tamogun take over to continue to drive you into doing that good habit. Start waking up at 4 o'clock, you develop that habit. What sustains that habit? Tamogun sustains that habit. Tamogun sustains the habit through constantly making sure that it continues to go ahead, and that you start to do it on a without thinking. You do it, right? So that whole without thinking you're doing something is Tamogun's characteristic. Tamogun in service of Satogun is you developing right habits and letting Tamogun take over from there. You develop the habit of doing Nam Jap constantly. After that, Tamogun takes over. When you're doing it without thinking about it, constantly your jeeb is doing Nam Jap, Nam Jap, Nam Jap, Nam Jap, Nam Jap. You develop the right habit of waking up in the morning, doing some puja, doing some swadhyay, doing some exercise. After that, you will continue to do that as a habit. Got it?
Now, Naam Jap, is it that we are learning about gunas in this 14th chapter? Because first we have to do karma yoga, we have to do bhakti, and then satogun, staying satogun, which will lead us to self-realization, let's say. But without, let's say, I'm being a karma yogi, but not doing bhakti, but I'm in satogun. Will I still reach self-realization, or it has to be karma yoga and bhakti also and sato everything, or just being in satogun will also lead to self-realization?
If you will do karma yoga, and if you will follow karma yoga and actually perform karma, if you become a karma yogi, okay, bhakti yoga will happen and you will constantly be in satogun. Okay, you're not choosing satogun over the others. This is gyan yoga. Okay, karma yoga is actually doing things. If you're doing them without understanding the science behind them, you will still achieve self-realization, because the very act of doing the karma yoga will cleanse you enough so that your buddhi will be purified enough for you to just absorb the gyan that is everywhere. Even without you learning this, if you were a true karma yogi and you become a true karma yogi, this gyan will dawn on you through Bhagwanji's grace. And that gyan, once it dawns on you, will lead to self-realization. Okay, so the reason we are reading about Gyan of this kind now, first Kshetra, so first of all, why Gyan Yoga in the end? Because you first have to learn to do, we are all in Tamogun. We are born in Tamogun. We have to go from Tamogun to doing activity first. And then we start, and most of us are either in Tamogun or are doing Sakam activities. Whoever is not doing Tamogun first has to go into doing Sakam activities first. Then from there, we go to Nishkam activities, which is all about Karma Yoga. Sakam activities becoming Nishkam activities. Okay? You do that. And then you start to develop this massive reverence for Bhagwanji. It has to come. It will come. By understanding who Bhagwanji is, you will fall in love with Bhagwanji. Okay? And then that reverence then drives further. It fuels your Karma Yoga further. These both are the base. Without these two bases, Gyan will never dawn on you, because your intellect will never be clean. You read this entire last 6 chapters. Okay, I invite anyone. You read those first 6 chapters, but you don't do Karma Yoga. This knowledge will never seep into you. Because buddhi itni jad rahegi, your buddhi will be so moti, your intellect will be so mota, you will never understand why. And so if you don't understand, really understand why, you will never act upon it. If you will never act upon it, this knowledge will never become experiential. If the knowledge doesn't become experiential and you've not really fully like imbibed it, you've not become that knowledge, you will never reach self-realization. पढ़ लो, वो अक्षर के अक्षर ही रह जाएंगे. Self-realization नहीं आएगी. सारे श्लोक रट लें और उनको हम बोल दें, without it turning into experience, without it changing you from inside out, which means your actions have changed, your behavior has changed, your way of being has changed in front of every VVGP, you will never reach self-realization. That is why they are in this space. By the time you reach this Shatak, the assumption is that after having read those first 12 chapters, we have all developed a certain sense of awareness beyond ourselves. We have all started to try and implement Karma Yoga in our lives on a daily basis. We may fail consistently, but we are aware that we are failing. That thing has seeped in. A certain level of reverence towards Bhagwanji has seeped in by now because you have understood some part of Bhagwanji. Then the Gyan Yoga comes in, it will tell you why and how, and it will start to tell you the mechanics of how things work. Why Karma Yoga works in a certain way. You start to understand the whys behind. Okay. And then you use that little bit of knowledge that you've understood of the whys behind back into Karma Yoga, back into Bhakti Yoga. It becomes a virtuous cycle. The better you understand the whys, the better you do your Karma Yoga, the better your Bhakti Yoga comes into play. And that with that knowledge, again, the Gyan Yoga, your whys, your understanding of the whys become better. It will all feed itself to take you higher and higher and higher. Make sense? Yeah. So Sanchita, you have a bad throat, so please share your takeaways on the group for everyone's benefit. Okay, and give your throat a little bit of rest. So we'll do the closing shlokas now. Will someone volunteer to do the closing shlokas today? Who wants to
I
go?
can do it.
Yeah,
I
please.
can do it. ॐ सर्वेषां स्वस्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां शान्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां पूर्णं भवतु सर्वेषां मङ्गलं भवतु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्यो मा अमृतङ्गमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ पूर्णमद पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ ॐ ॐ
Thank you, everyone. Narayan, Narayan, and have a great week ahead.